Good afternoon, viewers. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be taking you on a journey to learn computer hardware maintenance. Kindly stay with us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, um, students and our listener. Um, we are starting another edition today, which is identification and understanding of the functions of motherboard and CPU. But before we dive into that, let's remind us of what we actually did last week. So, which was the introduction into the main hardware components of a computer and maintenance. If I could recall, I was able to mention the input devices, likewise the process unit and the output devices. So today I will throw some questions and I want you students to respond to them. Let me see um, how far you capture what we are trying to say and how you evaluate you on based on what we actually did last week. So the first thing is this: input devices. Dash is an example of input devices. A, printer. B, monitor. C, keyboard. And D, speaker. Can anyone give us the answer? Yes, keyboard. I said the keyboard is an example of an input device. It shows we are together. Let me try another question. What is an example of an output device? A, mouse. B, microphone. C, scanner. D, monitor. Anyone? Yes? What's the answer? Monitor. Yes, monitor is an example of an output device. And I made mention of something yesterday that there are some of the devices that serve both as an output and input devices. Can anyone mention this? Wow, screen touch. Yes, yes, yes. Wow, perfectly. It could be your mobile gadget or your mobile phone or a screen touch laptop. It does both function of input and output functions. But today we are going into uh, uh, identification and understanding the function of motherboard and CPU, which at the end of the day, we should be able to capture these. We should be able to identify and we should be able to know the functions of CPU. And don't forget, last week we also defined the CPU as the brain of the computer. It does the logical calculations, the arithmetic calculations, but you might not know. But it does a lot of things while we are inputting. After which you have input, it does some calculations like such as arithmetic calculations, the logical calculations, and now process all these things. After processing it, it passes the work to the output unit. Which example of an output unit is what? Printer. Printer is an output unit because it allows us to bring out our hard copy. Output unit could come in form of hard copy or soft copy. It's not necessarily an hard copy. It could be an hard copy or a soft copy. Okay, so the CPU as it is, it processes instructions. Any instruction you give to the CPU, it will process it. And after which it has processed it, maybe you send the calculations or you are trying to run a data, it will help you to process it. So after processing it, then we now pass it out as the finished product. So it manages the data too, the information we are inputting. It will manage it, it will manipulate it and give us our what? Our results, which is what? The main work of the CPU. Then what are the functions of the CPU. Then the CPU, when you look at it, they say it fetch. What do we mean by that? It retrieves instructions, and from where? From the memory. Do not forget yesterday we were able to deal with the memory. We said the memory it has the non-volatile memory, and we have the what? Volatile memory. We said the volatile memory example is what? RAM, which is random access memory. Because the RAM as it is doing what? A temporal work. Is doing what? A temporal work. Once you on your system, the RAM will start working. But once the system goes off, the RAM also stop working. Then we also say it helps us to interpret whatever instruction we have given to it, which will come in form of what? Output, which is what? The result. Because it will be an expected result. When you type a particular page or you input some particular instructions to the computer, you expect it to come the way you design it. If it's giving you otherwise, means the output unit is having some problems, which we are going to deal with when we get to where we do the maintenance, we troubleshoot. Then you will understand more about all these processes. Then it executes. It will help you to execute, to ruminate your data. Then you should know there is problem if you are giving instruction and is not obeying your instruction. That is why they say garbage in, garbage out. Whatever you give into the computer is what is going to process and bring out for you. So if it is now giving you another output, means there is a problem somewhere, which when we get to the troubleshooting and the maintenance, we will lay more emphasis on that. Then it stores. You can see the CPU uses what? I told you that we have the RAM and we have the ROM. The RAM is what? Is a temporal storage. Is a volatile device. Why the what? The ROM, as the case may be, which are what? Hard disk, which is the conventional drive, and the SSD, which are also part of our storage devices. You might be asked, what are the storage devices? They are we together? So we have the SSD, we have the hard disk, we have the flash drive. They help us to store our information. So that is the functions of the CPU. The CPU performs those key functions. And look at, we have, according to me, we have the types of CPU. You may just be wondering, how come you come about types of CPU? Yes, we have the types. We have different types, maybe by structures, maybe by functions. So look at, if you look at it by structures, then they say we have the desktops, we have the laptops. They are doing the same work. Here we have the desktop, and here we have the laptop. And there is one thing common to them, which I want you to note. The laptop has what is called screen, and the desktop uses what? Monitor. The laptop has its own keyboard, the desktop uses its own keyboard. The laptop has its own touchpad, and the desktop uses its own mouse. I told you the difference between touchpad and mousepad. It can come in form of questions. You should know that mousepad is not the same as touchpad. Mousepad is just a surface where you keep your mouse on, so that the mouse optics can move as wanted. Or for some that knows the trackball mouse, they walk through it. But nowadays, due to technology, we use an optic mouse that you don't need to roll and roll the ball. You just move the optics. It will go to any direction you want. And as it is, we have the CPU, which is this base. We are going to see that today. The CPU, which is a component that allows or connects every other peripherals. But they call it, some people will call it motherboard. Why is it called motherboard? Why not fatherboard? Is father not to be used instead of mother? Yes, anything that expands, they believe is mother. But anything that stands static is believed to be father. So it's a motherboard because it allows other peripherals to connect with it. So we are going to see that when we get to the next topic next week by the grace of God. So this is the CPU. You discover that this CPU connects every other peripheral. I will show you, but when we get to mantling and dismantling, assembly and disassembly, we'll speak more on that. You can see this is the CPU itself. So it allows every other peripherals to connect. This is the CPU. You can see the CPU. It allows you to connect using either the PS2 or USB or VGA or serial port or the expansion slot or the Ethernet ports. And we also have fans. We have the power pack. So therefore, we are able to say that we have the desktop and we have the laptop, which we have analyzed according to the structure, because they are doing the same functions. The only difference is the way they are being designed, which is by structure. And we also have the single core and the multiple core. The single core is believed to be an old version because it's not dynamic, but where you have multiple core, where you can switch from one core to another. If you have a multiple core laptop or desktop system, will function faster because you have more processors, which they are called CPUs. So we have more processors that processes your work. But in a single one, you have only one that processes your work. So we cannot compare. So we also have the Intel and the AMD board. The Intel are more they are more reliable than the AMD. For those who make more use of system, they will understand what I'm trying to say. That is why at the end of these lessons, we will understand and we will know the difference between them. So we will know which one is better than the other. Because the Intel system offers a reliable, efficient, and effective board in terms of what? The processor. They give you a very reliable processor that works with the board and functions help you to manipulate, to organize, to execute, and to give out your information as you want them to be. So they are the two major manufacturers, the Intel and the AMD. They are the two major manufacturers. Though the Intel, we have the Intel Celeron, and we also have Intel, which might even come in core high. The Intel, they maintain the core high. We have core 2, core i3, core i5, core i7, core i9, and the likes. So the AMD, they also what? They maintain their own too. AMD Ryzen, which is the latest AMD. Because the old AMD has issue. Because at the end of the day, you discover that your board is not, at the end of the day, usually come up with a fault, like not showing on the screen. For people who have used the AMD and Intel, they will know because they must have experienced what I'm buttressing. In a nutshell, the AMD board has a higher value in terms of giving you what you want than the AMD. But the AMD is cheaper in price to the Intel. So it's now left to you to decide where and which of the two you want. Then CPU installation. We are moving to how do we actually install CPU. In this wise, I will want us to pay more attention. we are going to see how CPU can be installed. How can we install CPU? I'm going to open this so that we'll see it. This is the desktop system, which is also classified in structure. We have the tower, and we also have the one that sits on the table called desktop CPU. This is the tower CPU. It stands tall, while the desktop stays flat on the table. So the CPU installation, as we can see, this is the motherboard. We can see that the motherboard connects every other peripherals. It connects every other peripherals, such as what? We have the RAM, which is random access memory, and we have the hard drive that is connected on the motherboard. Then, where is the CPU? That's where we are going. This is the CPU itself. This is the motherboard where the CPU is connected. So we make use of, as you can see, screwdriver or flat top screwdriver, flat head screwdriver. Can we see? So we are trying to see how to install the CPU. Are we together? This is the casing. So this is where you actually need your screwdriver. You have to be so careful while you are dealing with this. Can we see? This is what they call the cooling aspect of it. This does, you can see dust all over it, this is the heat zinker. We call it the heat zinker. It absorbs heat, and after absorbing the heat, sends it to where? To the cooling fan, and the cooling fan blows the heat away. So if there is no ventilation within our system, you discover that there will be much dust which affect the functions of the board. How do we now install heat? Then, as you can see, this is the processor. This is what? The processor, which is a socket processor. We have the socket processor. This is what? The processor. It's a socket processor because the way you put it, it sucks. We have the slot, but the slot processor is an old type where you have to slot it. But the modern processor is this socket, but they have now upgraded. Most of the processors are now board-fused processor. Now we cannot change the processor because it has inbuilt on board processor. What do I mean with this? Instead of you seeing this processor, you will not see this processor. It will be on the board, and they will mount an e-zinc on the board. In that case, the board is functioning as what? The motherboard that also accommodates the processor and will also take other peripherals. So look at this. This is the processor. you look at the edges and look at the other edge, and you look into your system or the motherboard, you see the two edges as well. This is the first edge and this is what? The second edge, which means you are going to put it this way. That's it. Then you put the clip. The essence of the clip is to make sure it holds the processor firmly. It's click like that. Then you do not forget to put this. But look at, there is something on the surface of the e-zinker. This is called a thermal paste. A thermal paste, which helps to reduce the heat that the processor will bring out. So the heat will be reduced. It will not be so much, so that the e-zinker can absorb the heat and send to the cooling fan to blow away. Without this paste, well, when we get to troubleshooting and maintenance, we'll say more about this. What is the work of the paste on the processor? So we'll say more on that. So you now put the heat zinker, and don't forget, you screw it back. So I will ask an evaluation. I will have to ask an evaluative questions after this class, because I want to know maybe we are together or not, so as to know if you are following or not. So having done this, the processor is installed, the e-zinker is put. Likewise, these gadgets, they also help to focus, to make sure the e-zinker focus on where the heat will actually pass through before it gets to where? To the cooling fan. That is the purpose of this. So, so we try as much as to be together. So as we can see, we have installed the processor. Carefully, we are able to what? To install the processor, and we make sure we secure, we lower the old things and make sure the processor is well installed. Because if you do not install the processor very carefully and very well, it will have a result for you. At the end of the day, if you install it inappropriately, the result will not come up. What will be the side effect of it? Your system may not come up. Your system will on, but will not come up. It will not show. You'll now be wondering what is actually happening. It's as a result of that. But when we get to maintenance and troubleshooting, we'll learn more about that. Then, I told you about the thermal paste. I show you the thermal paste. Make sure you put it, because it has its own work, but we'll explain more. So, and we also input the e-zinc vividly. The e-zinc is well placed and screwed. Likewise, I have shown you every peripherals on what? On the motherboard. Likewise, the cooling fan. They have, most of the system, they have 2, they have 3 cooling fans. What do they actually do? They are not for fun, because the work this CPU is doing is more of it's like someone going to war, but because we use them, we never know. Some of the CPU will come with 4 or 5, especially the graphics enabled CPU. Mostly the people that go for the graphics CPU are what? They are the editors, either video editors or image editors. What do they actually do? They do more on the CPU. So they want their result and they don't want lagging. They don't want their CPU lagging and hanging. They don't want such. So they make sure they keep the CPU in a good place so as not to be overstored with dust. Dust is as a result of heat. When there is too much of heat, people do ask me that, how come my CPU, where I put the CPU, I don't expect to see dust? Is it that where is the dust coming from? I just laugh. That the dust will come in as far as what? The e-zinc that is absorbing the heat from the what? From the processor. And the cooling fan is not performing its work very well. The heat will be so much for the cooling fan because they are not functioning very well. Some of the cooling fan are not working well, but meanwhile we may not know, but they will always have effect. The heat will start accumulating and becoming dust. The more the dust, the more pressure it will have on the processor because the heat that's supposed to move out will be going back to the board, and that may actually have a side effect on your board or on your CPU as the case may be. So we are able to see the CPU and how to install the CPU. Then the motherboard. The motherboard. I try to give instance why do we actually call it motherboard. That is because it accommodates, it allows every other component to connect on it. That is why they call it what? Motherboard. And that is the motherboard. Then the motherboard is the main circuit board that connects and allows communication between all components in a computer. It gives room. This is the motherboard as I've shown before. It allows these are every other components. And don't forget, the reason why we call this a system might be laptop, might be desktop, even phone. Why do we call it a system? It's because every other component, all the components are so important that if a component should fail, the whole component will not function very well. The same thing as human being. If one part is having issue, the whole part will be feeling the issue and they may not function very well. The same thing here. So this is what our hard disk, which is our permanent, is a non-volatile, is a permanent storage device, is connected through the SATA cable. As we can see, this is the SATA cable. This is the SATA cable that actually connects this. It connects, look at the mouth, that connects the hard drive. Then we also have the CD-ROM. This is a CD-ROM, it's a compact disc ROM, has its own functions. Though the modern and the new system, they are not coming with CD-ROM, especially the modern laptop, where you are having Core i, the mini laptop, the super laptop that we're having now, they hardly come with any CD-ROM. But well, do not forget we have an external CD-ROM. So that is the joy. You can always use, that is why we have the motherboard, because it accommodates every other component. We have what? The external CD-ROM that we can use on the laptop. Then, as we have seen, that the CPU connects the memory, it connects every other component as it is. Then we have the slot. It also connects the slot. Look at this. This is called an expansion slot. It also helps us to connect the expansion slot. Look at this, a desktop, and it's having a wireless card installed on it, which simply means it's a desktop and it's running on what? Wireless or wirelessly. In that case, means we also have the wireless dongle too, or wireless Bluetooth, which we can also use. Because of the CPU accommodates all these, or the motherboard rather, because the CPU is different from the motherboard. But because there are some of the systems that they incorporate both the motherboard and the CPU together, you cannot differentiate between the CPU and the motherboard. So therefore, when they say motherboard, when they say CPU, they go in the same way. But when it gets to an advanced level where we try to differentiate, then we go straight to see the difference between the processor and what? The motherboard. So let's continue. We are able to look at the motherboard and we are able to explain what the motherboard is. Then what is now the functions of the motherboard? We have been saying the motherboard. The motherboard too has a function. What is the function of the motherboard? The motherboard houses the CPU. The motherboard houses the CPU. It houses what? The CPU. It's the one that accommodates every other component. It also provides the slots, like what we have seen. We have seen PCI slot, AGP slot, and we have seen the different slots where you can connect any. This is a slot. This one is a card that stands on the what? Slot, or sits in the slot. Then we have the distribution of power, which through the power pack, which stands like the adapter. In the laptop, we use adapter. Here we use the power pack. And we also have the host chips. We have different chipsets on the motherboard. We have the capacitor, the resistor, the inductor coil, and the likes. And we have the FSB track. You can see them. They are here. We have the resistor. We have the diode. We have the likes. You can see capacitor. We have the resistor. We have the jumper. We have these different sockets. We have the likes. You can see them. We have this CMOS battery. We have CMOS battery socket on the motherboard. So in a nutshell, we have looked into that, and we can now make this. That is the function of the motherboard. It houses, it provides loss, and it distributes power, and it also holds every other holds chipsets, and likewise it holds every other components too. So key components of motherboard: we have CPU socket. We have made mention of the CPU socket. We have the RAM slot. I have shown you the RAM slot. We have the chipset. We have the north bridge. We have the south bridge on the motherboard, and we have the BIOS, which is the basic input-output system. The motherboard is the basic input-output system, and we also have the UART, which is the firmware interface for system settings. And don't forget, there is one component that holds all these settings, which is what? The CMOS battery. And we also have what? The expansion slot, which I have shown you. We have the CPI Express. We have for graphics, and we also have the AGP, and we have other what? Peripheral components on it. We have the power connectors. I have shown you this is where we connect the power. This is the power, and the power is connected onto the motherboard. This is the power connector. It connects directly onto the motherboard. Can you see? This is the power. Every component connecting directly to the motherboard has to take their own source of power from this power pack. Then we have the I/O ports, which is what? Input and output ports, which are the USB, the HDMI. Like in this one now, we have the USB. I'll show you. We have the Ethernet port, which is LAN port. Some people call it LAN port or Ethernet port. We have the USB, we have the PS2, and we have what? The audio port, the line in and line out. And we have the serial port, we have the VGA port. And we also have the fan-in headers that helps to coordinate the heat and brings the heat in one way direction to the fan, that the fan now blows away. So in a nutshell, we are able to capture the main objective, which is what? We are able to identify and we are able to understand the functions of the motherboard and CPU. So I think I would like to give 2 or 3 questions so as to know if you students are following or not. Okay, the question goes, what is the main function of the CPU? Who can give us? I may not read the options to you, but I want you to. Somebody is talking. Wow, perfect. Perfect. It processes instructions and performs calculations. Yes, it processes instructions, performs calculations, does the arithmetic and the logical calculations. Okay, another question. Which component allows the CPU to communicate with other computer? Okay, let me give you option. 1, RAM. B, hard drive. C, motherboard. D, power supply. I know it's so cheap. Wow, yes. Motherboard, yes, it's motherboard. So in a nutshell, we are able to capture our objectives and we are able to evaluate ourselves based on the topic. Next week, we shall be moving to the next topic, which we are going to dabble in, and then we will now see more about what we are talking about. And by then, we will see new topic by the grace of God. It's not by our will, which we are going to see next week. Till next week, we meet again by God's grace. Bye-bye.